Hi there Waltoneers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and today we have new information regarding the temporary closure periods of Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World Resort in direct response to the COVID-19 global health pandemic. So with that being said, let's get straight into it. As the initial statement from Disney on March 12th stated that Disneyland, Walt Disney World and Disneyland Paris would remain temporarily closed through the end of March, along with the suspension of Disney Cruise Line. However, we have now received a new statement that doesn't just extend the temporary closure periods incrementally, but importantly the parks and resorts will remain closed until further notice. And it should not be understated at how significant this language is, as the Disney parks have never closed for an indefinite amount of time. Although I will say that despite this new language creating a type of ambiguity of message for cast members and guests alike, I do feel that it is a more accurate representation of the difficult predicament that Disney is in, as to create arbitrary incremental extensions is kind of pointless, especially when taking into consideration that the CDC has issued recommendations that there should be no gatherings of more than 10 people for an 8-week period effective as of March 16th, which would mean that under that current guidance, which might be extended, Disney would have most likely had to continually extend their closure periods through May 11th at the very earliest. Now, at the time of this recording, predicting a reopening date for the parks and resorts would be foolish, as there are too many variables at play for Disney to make a definitive statement. Although they probably do have a time frame in mind, it would make for a particularly messy situation if that date is proven to have been delayed once again. However, I will say that my own educated guess based upon the latest data relating to the infection rate of COVID-19 and the overall response and actions that are being taken, that I personally wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Disney parks remain closed through April, May, and also June, with hopefully a phased reopening some point within the summer. Although out of all of this, the most obvious flaw with this announcement of until further notice is that it will have a significant effect on the modifications and cancellations of bookings throughout the summer and potentially the rest of the year, with this new announcement possibly overwhelming the Disney reservation system and also the team behind it, leading to quite difficult technical and administrative issues, especially considering that we've had it confirmed that the team that operates the Walt Disney Travel Company is now working remotely from home. So in light of all of that, if you have an upcoming trip booked, then I would advise that you cautiously track this closure information here, and I'll be sure to put links down below in the description box of this video so you can go ahead and bookmark them for regular viewing at later stages. But considering that all of this is an extremely fluid environment, Disney have also made it clear that if you've booked directly through the Walt Disney Travel Company, then all modification and cancellation fees will be waived through June 30th of 2020, meaning that you have time to decide what the best option will be, thus staggering the costs to Disney and also your third-party travel planners based upon the proximity of your vacation start date. And then when it comes to annual pass holders in Disneyland and Walt Disney World, the simple policy is that they will be automatically extended by the period of time that the parks will remain closed. But now I just want to come back to another big part of this statement, and that is that hourly cast members at the parks and resorts will be paid through April 18th, which is interesting in itself, as labour unions representing frontline cast members in Walt Disney World requested that cast members be paid through April 30th, whereas the unions representing the Disneyland cast members requested the payment until April 19th, in line with the payment policy of Universal Studios. And so I understand that there are more complexities to Disney's announcement, as they need to negotiate with the union representatives before they announce an extension. But if I'm being honest, I am disappointed that it took Disney so long to release this kind of official announcement, as after all there are 70,000 cast members in Walt Disney World and 30,000 cast members in Disneyland that didn't even know what their employment status was going to be less than 1 week away from the end date of the original closure period, which in itself creates untold amounts of stress and anxiety and also uncertainty for their household income levels and the decisions they have to make, which could have all been alleviated if this announcement was made in a more timely manner. And then lastly, when it comes to paying the cast members through April 18th, I feel very strongly that a company the size of the Walt Disney Company has a responsibility to go above and beyond in supporting their cast members with continued payment throughout this closure period, as not only would that align with the values that the company promotes, but there are also fiscal instruments at the disposal of the company that would make this possible, like offsetting the pay against their tax obligation, raising funds through debt sell-offs, or even applying for government grants from the stimulus package. However, now that we've addressed all of that, including the park closure periods, one thing that's been left out of the conversation so far is what will the park operations look like when the parks do eventually reopen, as it can be expected that measures will be put into place that will make for a slightly different experience for a short period of time. But before we discuss what all of that might entail, I just want to say that this next section is partly based on existing measures that were implemented just before the park closure, also combined with insider information of what is rumoured to be under consideration for a short period of time. So with that being said, let's begin, with the first measure that is rumoured to be taken being one regarding the overall capacity, as apparently all parks will operate at roughly half their usual attendance capacity, along with a reduction in attraction capacity as well, as this will be a continuance of the social distancing measures for precautionary reasons, as even though the Disney park reopenings will of course be guided by the medical and health authorities' advice, for a period of time stricter social distancing will remain until a threat of resurgence of COVID-19 can be truly ruled out. And the other factor playing into the reduction capacity is the supply and demand principle. That is, that people's travel plans and behaviour, along with the airline industry, will cautiously begin returning to a standard level that will inevitably take some time. And in addition to that, it's also rumoured that the dining capacity in all the restaurants could be reduced as part of the social distancing measures, along with substantial modifications to buffet services at certain restaurants. And then we move on to the next measure, and that is a strengthened social distancing and changed behavioural patterns, as social distancing will be heavily encouraged around the parks. However, it's said that where Disney can enforce social distancing, they most likely will, with mass indoor theatre attractions to remain temporarily closed longer than other attractions, with this to prevent any large gatherings of people enclosed inside large indoor spaces. So this means that attractions such as Muppet Vision 3D, Tough to Be a Bug, Finding Nemo the Musical, Mickey's PhilharMagic, Hall of Presidents, American Adventure, and basically any other attraction that involves a large number of people being seated together. But it's not yet known if rides like Soarin' and Flight of Passage could also fall within this categorization as well. Although don't forget that if these measures do come into place, that they will only be for a temporary period of time, and then these indoor theatre attractions will reopen in phases over the course of a month or so. Then this strengthened social distancing measures will also be continued to confined queue spaces, as it's rumoured that fewer guests will be allowed to occupy the queue space of certain attractions, which would help encourage further distancing between groups. But in addition to this, last week within the Disneyland app, the boarding group tab, which was primarily for Rise of Resistance, was updated to a My Queues section, which many speculate could be an indication that virtual queuing could be implemented in a lot more attractions, as a suitable measure to help keep guests roaming around the parks in open air spaces, rather than confined to switchback lines. Then, in addition to all of this, it's also being rumoured that a postponement of parades and firework displays is being considered, as it's very difficult to manage those crowd flows in the best of circumstances, let alone enforce social distancing in those kind of environments. Although it must be noted that parades and nighttime shows would be reintroduced over a short period of time, probably in the same sort of time frame as a month or so, similar to that of the mass indoor attractions. Then lastly, we come to increased hygiene, as wash stations and hand sanitizer stands will be found everywhere throughout the parks, along with the inclusion of mandatory wipe downs of ride vehicles and high-touch surfaces. And character meet and greets will be greatly reduced to begin with as well, with that slowly returning to normal over time. But as a reminder, all of this is only rumoured to be under consideration for the time being, and has not been confirmed by Disney as of this recording. So in summary to all of us today, I know that this video hasn't been the most fun and uplifting to watch, but don't worry, here on DSNY Newscast I will be getting back into some more positive and uplifting topics that will hopefully distract you and take your mind off the global health pandemic for a few minutes every single week. But right now, I'm feeling exactly how you're feeling. We're living through surreal times, and the road ahead doesn't seem certain. But do rest assured that we will make it through this eventually. And awaiting us all on the other side will be a great, big, beautiful tomorrow once again.